any in the league. You know Brian Daboll really well. What kind of game plan? What do you think Brian Daboll is thinking going into that? I think they're going to punch. I think they're going to go right at the Vikings.
Yeah, I think just knowing Dave's for as long as I have and just watching his teams not only operate previously when he was an assistant and a coordinator, but now, of course, as the head guy in New York, I think the biggest thing that he's going to preach all week to his guys is what we've done all year. That's who we are. That is our identity. It's the run game. It's the play action. Getting Daniel Jones on the move, both designed and improv in the passing game. He's a great athlete. Obviously, Saquon had the year everyone was hoping he would have when they drafted him years back, dealt with some injuries. So I agree. I think they are going to be what we've seen from them all year. They're going to be aggressive on defense. They're going to blitz. They're going to put pressure. They're going to kind of play with their hair on fire a little bit on defense and take chances. And Daboll's going to control the game on offense with that run game, with the play action, which is in essence the formula we've seen from them all year. So often, Colin, teams want to like reinvent themselves when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they forget, like, just do whatever we did for the previous 17 games. Just do that again, and that gives us our best chance of being successful. I think that's what Dave's going to do.
Yeah, I think we both agree he's the coach of the year. Tip of the cap to Mike Tomlin and Pete Carroll and Kyle Shanahan. But Brian Daboll is just – he is such a relatable dude. I love what he's done, and I think this is a great spot for the Giants because they get to face a team that beat them and they match up well with. A lot of times in the playoffs, you don't get a good matchup. So Cowboys is interesting because you just had them. Now, it's – see, listen, everybody has a bad week. I mean, Brady's had awful weeks. I tend to think that Tampa's one-dimensional. You've had games. I just don't think Tampa's got the firepower. I mean, do you? I think Dallas wins that thing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, all year, the problem with Tampa has been the offense. No one could figure out why they didn't have the firepower. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin. They have Julio, who obviously is in the later stage of his career. And then obviously they have Tom Brady. But they had no explosive passing game. Their run game was non-existent. And then all of a sudden, in week 17, they played the Panthers, and Mike Evans is running by people, and they go top. They throw 3 deep balls to Mike Evans, and people are saying, all right, is Tom Brady back? Is this offense finding its way? For the short period of time they played last week, I thought they looked sharp, had some decent drives offensively. So I think Tampa's playing better. And then to your earlier point, we were there. We were down in Washington. We saw Dallas struggle. You don't typically want to be playing your worst ball in week 18, right? That's the game you want to kind of find your momentum. Whether you win or lose, you just want to get the starters in, play well. Philly jumped out to a lead. Okay, get out your starters, move on. We're going to the wild card down in Tampa. They played their starters almost the entire game.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy's trying to find that groove, that rhythm, get some, and they couldn't. They eventually just waved the white flag and took Dak and the rest of the starters out and said, all right, better things ahead. I think Mike McCarthy's a very good coach. I think Dan Quinn's a very good coach. Kellen Moore, they have the leadership. They have Dak. They have guys who've been there before. They'll play a lot better because if they don't, they're going to lose.
So you were with the Seahawks for a year. We talked about how detailed Pete Carroll was. Now, they have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 fourths. They got a lot of draft capital in the Russell Wilson trade. My guess is they're never going to have a top 5 pick again in the recent, the next 5 years. The team's got too much young talent. I think they're going to take a quarterback and then put him behind Geno for a year. But I could see Pete saying, I want to go get 2 defensive starters. I want to do.
No doubt.
You tell me. I mean, Geno led the NFL in completion percentage. Geno was top 5 passer rating. They don't match up with the Niners. Pete, what is your gut feeling on what they do with those 2 first-round picks? Or do they go get a quarterback later?
I think the big question is what I think they want to bring Geno back. I think he's earned it. You can make an argument he's comeback player of the year. Granted, he's not coming off injury, but he's just kind of resurrected his career. Geno is arguably the story of the year in a lot of ways individually for what he did out in Seattle and the year he had, especially filling in the shoes of Russell. I think the question is, how much do you have to pay him? If you can get Geno Smith on a long-term contract because the market is a little soft, or and you can get him for $20 million, $25 million when the going rate for elite starter is 45 plus, I think you lock in Geno. I think Geno has shown he can push the ball downfield. They generate a ton of explosive plays with DK and Tyler Lockett. He's run that offense arguably better. The passing game is better than maybe it's ever been. You mentioned all the draft ammunition. Now all of a sudden, you're Pete Carroll. You can get 4 in the top 2 rounds, 4 quality starters. First and second round picks have to be starters. You can get 4 of them, and if none of them have to be your long-term quarterback, that's how you can build your team for the long haul, and you're not paying your quarterback 45, 50 million. It's a good position to be in if you're Seattle, and if they can get Geno back long-term at a reasonable starter rate, I hope he breaks the bank personally, but if they can get him back at a fair, kind of tier 2 level quarterback and lock that in long-term, I think that sets them up really well for just continuing to acquire talent and build the roster.
3 straight years, Aaron Rodgers, who we know is gifted, has had bad fourth quarters at home in crucial games 3 years in a row. And I don't think the Packers want to move off him. But as you age, as you did, generally when you age, you have to be more committed to rehab, more committed to film study. You can't just, your athletic ability, it tapers. And I think what Green Bay looks at is, listen, Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, they live in the building in the offseason, and they're in their athletic prime. I think they want more commitment from Aaron. I don't think they want to go younger. I think they want him back. But I think it kind of, when he wouldn't come to the offseason for Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, they're thinking, Aaron, come on, they're rookies. We need you here. Would you be shocked if they just said, listen, we love you, but we can get picks. We're going to give Jordan Love, who looked pretty good last time we saw him. Would it shock you if they moved off Aaron?
It would. I'll be honest with you, Colin. I think it would shock me. I think teams realize just how hard it is to not only find a quarterback, but then go through the process of potentially finding another one, right? Green Bay has been very stable at quarterback for decades, and they're one of the few teams that's been able to do that. I mean, you look at what Pittsburgh's done. Roethlisberger out. It looks like Kenny Pickett is that guy for the next decade plus, at least based off this year. That is so hard. Teams go decades without finding a quarterback. We did the Washington game here in Carolina, like just constant guys in and out of that position. So I think that's a huge gamble. Unless they are just totally sold that Jordan Love is the guy and there's no question in their minds. I think the concern every ownership group, every personnel group has is we have a guy that we know is an elite. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's still playing at a high level. He doesn't look slow. His arm still looks as live as ever. Do we roll the dice when we know it is not a foregone conclusion that we're going to replace this guy because we want to continue to win? Matt LaFleur does not want to come in here and now go back through a rebuild after setting records in his first 3 years of coaching, winning 13 games. I would be absolutely shocked if they do it. I understand the haul they could potentially get. We just talked about what Seattle got for Russell. I think quarterback is the position in all of sports. If you have one, I think you'd have to really twist my arm a lot to get rid of a sure thing and not just continue to build around them.
So, you had some Philadelphia games this year, didn't you, Greg?
Yep.
Yeah, you had 2 or 3 of them at least.
Yep.
Lane Johnson's not playing. Hurts is dinged up. I look at him and I think early in the year they were healthy and didn't turn the ball over. Now they're dinged up and they're turning it over. It's very hard to play great football 16 weeks in a row. Like, you become different teams. How do you feel about Philadelphia today, this morning? How do you feel?
I still feel pretty good about him. We saw them on Christmas Eve, albeit they lost. That was when Gardner Minshew started the Christmas Eve game down in Dallas. Close game, came right down to the end. Some turnovers, some picks and fumbles and whatnot. But they have a really good roster. If Jalen Hurts now with the bye week to get really back healthy, last week he kind of came out in week 18 and knew he just had to check the box, walk off the field as a winner, forget how we played, doesn't matter, get the win, we get the bye, we move on to the divisional round. That's exactly what happened. I think he'll be 100% in 2 weeks. He'll be back flying around. You mentioned Lane Johnson. That's a big one. He got hurt in that Dallas game that we called a few weeks back. They're saying he has a chance to potentially come back. He's arguably the best right tackle in the league. So they got to keep an eye on that. But I just like this roster. I like their coaching staff. I just like everything about their energy. Their offensive line is arguably the best in the league. They have they have probably the best pass rushing defensive line in the league. Like, those things carry over into meaningful playoff games. And I feel good I feel good. I know they stubbed their toe with 2 games without Jalen Hurts, but when Jalen Hurts plays, they lost 1 game all year.
Yeah.
In the NFL, that's pretty impressive.
Who do you like coming out of the NFC?
I don't want to play San Francisco. I know Philly. I think Philly's really good. I think Dallas has a chance to make a run. I mean, there's some really interesting stories. I think it's a really good 7 NFC teams that all have their strengths. But even with a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant last pick in the draft in Brock Purdy, I don't want to go to San Francisco. I don't want to play that defense. I don't want to deal with Bosa. I don't want to deal with Debo, and I don't want Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you go up and down the list on both sides of the ball. When healthy, their roster is one of the best in the league. Shanahan's arguably one of the best top 5 coaches in the entire league. That, to me, that's the favorite. That's the team I'm not psyched to go play.
Yeah, I get it. Greg Olsen, Fox Sports NFL analyst, #1 crew. Ratings are up.